Well, I never expected this. Who'd have thought we'd be back in here again so soon? We were on a study tour of Great Britain with the intention of learning the country's legal practices. In order to research the latest court proceedings here, we need as much court experience as possible. Well, yes, I suppose that's true, but for the person in the dock, it may well be his or her one and only time in court, and it could be life-changing. Life-ending, in fact, yes. In which case, treating it as research may seem a little crass. When you put it like that, you're quite right. Good morning. Mr. Natsume, good morning. Oh dear, are you alright? Your eyes are terribly bloodshot.
The early bird catches the worm, as they say here in Britain.
Yes, I've heard that expression.
But I really don't want to catch a worm. So I tried desperately not to wake up early, but I was so worried I couldn't catch a wink. And now I'm absolutely exhausted as a result.
Do all literary people take things so literally? Thank you for putting your faith in us today, Mr. Natsume. Not like he had much choice.
I wish I had 9 lives and my whole future hangs in the balance. I'm too terrified to tremble.
Really? Because I can feel tremors on the floor.
I can't do this. I can't take it. Although, locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire.
Yes?
I caught a glimpse of the public gallery as I walked by the courtroom. It looked like the opening night of the opera. There were so many people. I had no idea my case was such a notorious affair in London.
Oh, no. Neither did I. Do you know why that might be, Mr. Sato? I'm sorry, Mr. Naruhodo, but I have no idea. So that all-knowing look on your face is just coincidence, then?
Don't hide the truth from me. It's because of the Reaper, isn't it?
Lord Van Zykes? Is that right? I purchased as many different newspapers as I could find this morning, and yes, Lord Van Zykes is on the front page of every one of them. I knew it. Sometime after the prosecutor was dubbed the Reaper of the Bailey. He stopped appearing in court, it seems. It's been several years now, in fact, until the day before yesterday. Yes, as we've been told multiple times now. Yes. I believe that appearance made even greater waves here in the capital than today's. But we wouldn't have realized, of course, having only just arrived in the country. Why is the Reaper back in the Bailey so soon for what appears to be a mundane murder? That's the question the papers are asking, and they're all speculating various answers.
Mundane is the most significant saga of the century to some of us.
Oh dear, I meant no offense, but that's just how the papers are describing it.
Well, lest we also forget the fact it could spark an international incident. Obviously, the reappearance of this infamous prosecutor has caught people's attention. But there's another blatant similarity with the trial of 2 days ago.
Yes, I agree.
Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, it's you.
Me? Well, I suppose.
Both times, it is you who stands against this legendary prosecutor. It can only mean that you're friends with the Reaper!
Please, I don't rub shoulders with Deathbringers. I'm afraid there's really only one other explanation. It can be another example, Mr. Naruhodo, of your uncommon bad luck. Thanks for that.
Oh, this is just my luck. Why must I be represented by a man with such frail fortune? By the least lucky lawyer alive?
Well, let's not forget that it was you, Mr. Natsume, who asked me to represent you. Yes, it's true that I'm just a student, new to London, with little in the way of experience, or skills, or luck, or anything really, now that I think about it. But I promise you this, I will fight your corner until the bitter end, and I will believe in you, Mr. Natsume.
Oh, benevolent locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire.
You're not alone here with us, Mr. Natsume. Whatever happens, we will always be on your side.
Oh, benevolent non-locum assistant, Miss Mikitoba Esquire-S. I am in your debt forever. I shall never forget this great kindness.
Mr. Natsume, counsel for the defense. The court session is about to begin. Kindly make your way to the courtroom. Hello, my son. Have you come with us? Come to defend with us? All right, Mr. Natsume, it's time.
Yes.
Hello. Here is. This is it. My second appearance in a British courtroom, and my second trial against the Reaper. I hope you're watching over me, Cosma, because this time I won't let my faith waver. I'll believe in my client to the last, just like you believed in me. I believe I can do this now. I'm ready for this fight. Oh, wasn't that the guy from the last trial? Wasn't that one of the witnesses I just saw from the previous trial? In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. I know this isn't what he sounds like anymore, but I'm committing. I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness. The prosecution is fully prepared, my lord. The defense is ready, my lord. The Nipponese are a truly fascinating breed. Sorry, what? Lord Strongheart has told me all about you. That you are a student who arrived in London but 2 days ago, a mere amateur. Do you have a point? Being a compatriot, you feel compelled to try to help the accused, I suppose. Typical Nipponese arrogance. Forgive me, but I do not believe arrogance is an appropriate description. After all, at our previous encounter, the defendant was found to be innocent. Very true, and a most fascinating, if dark, trial it was, too. The tragic conclusion came later, of course. Here's to the acquitted and his unfortunate violent end.
Thank you, counsels. I see both sides are in fine fettle. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are you ready to carry out your duties as impartial members of the public?
You never know when you might be down on your luck, but I believe in fair play for everyone.
Well, I must warn you, I'm rather more ruthless than I appear. Oh, well, not me. What you see is what you get. I'm a peace-loving fellow. I'm afraid to say I think it's quite possible that mustached foreigner did the deed.
Come on, what are you waiting for? No doubt he did it anyway.
Sorry, didn't quite catch that.
Very well, let us proceed. Goodbye, my son.
Your opening statements, if you please, Lord Van Zykes.
Very recently, Great Britain signed an alliance with a rising power in the Far East. The accused in the dock today is a student from that same land, a certain Mr. Soseki Natsume. And while our country has extended this foreign student the warmest of welcomes, regrettably the kindness has not been returned. In fact, this student is accused of a most sinister act. Of plunging a knife into the back of an innocent woman who was doing nothing but walking down the street. A knife crime, I'll tell you from bitter experience, those are the worst. Bloody oath they are.
Just look at that sallow complexion and short stature. He's definitely one of those dreadful Japanese.
Come on, let's get this over with. With me, everyone. 1, 2, 3.
Sorry, didn't quite catch that.
Pray, forgive the discourtesy of smashing my hallowed chalice here in this great chamber. Allow me to call the first witness to the stand.
Very well. Bailiff, lead the inspector in, please.
Your name and occupation, please.
Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector at Scotland Yard.
Would you please summarize the events of the case for the court, Inspector?
The victim is thought to be a young woman in her 20s by the name of Olive Green. I'm illiterate.
I beg your pardon, Inspector. Thought to be?
Yes, having been stabbed in the back by her attacker's knife, the victim fell unconscious. That was 3 days ago now, and she's been comatose ever since. What? So they don't even know who she is? Comatose, I see. But her life is not in danger?
Fortunately for the Eastern student, the charges will not be murder. Pray elaborate on the details, Inspector.
Sir, if I could ask everyone to look at this street map. As I mentioned, the incident took place 3 days ago, at around 5 in the afternoon. It happened on the pavement running out alongside Briar Road, a wide thoroughfare for horse-drawn vehicles. It had not long since stopped snowing as the victim, Miss Green, was walking down the street. Out of the blue, she was approached from behind by the accused and stabbed in the back. Luckily, the young lady's life was spared, and she's currently being treated in one of the city's hospitals. But, being unconscious as she is, we've been unable to take a statement from her, of course. This is the case file with everything we know about the victim so far. Thank you, Inspector. The court will accept the documents as evidence.
What of the weapon that was used?
Sir, I have that here. It was removed from the victim's back.
Ouch. That's big to start that big thing is starting to make me scared to walk down the street. With a heavy blade like that, almost anybody would have been able to stab the poor woman. Even the scraggy-looking Soseki-san, I suppose.
A common or garden jackknife, I would say. Rather nondescript. Thank you, Inspector. The court accepts the blade as evidence. Now then, what do we know of the motive? Money or valuables, I presume?
From what we can tell by looking at the woman's possessions, it seems that she is a poor student herself. Hard to believe she would have had anything much worth pinching, my lord.
I see. Well, in that case, are we looking at some deep-seated resentment?
I'm afraid I couldn't say. Apart from visiting second-hand bookshops, the defendant, Mr. Natsume, doesn't appear to get out much. At the moment in time, we haven't been able to establish any sort of connection between him and the victim. Yet we have brought it to trial anyway, I suppose, for the sake of it.
If theft and grievance had been rules out of his motives, what reason could Mr. Natsume possibly have had for stabbing the young woman? Yet you arrested the man in spite of that in a totally unjustified and heavy-handed way. That guy in there is fucking mad about that. Holy shit. Pray forgive the discourtesy of flinging a freshly uncorked bottle into the public gallery. But your words have soured its hollowed bouquet. For it is you, my learned friend, who is being heavy-handed here. What? Scotland Yard does not arrest people without good cause. That should be beyond question. Inspector Gregson, the prosecution calls for your formal testimony. Explain to the court precisely why the constabulary came to arrest the Nipponese student.
Yes, sir. As I said, it was 5 o'clock in the afternoon when the incident occurred, and there was an unusually light fog. Visibility was reasonably good, and there was no one else about but the victim and the accused. Out of the blue, the victim was stabbed from behind and subsequently collapsed onto the pavement. The accused ran off, scattering his belongings all over the floor. Those being a number of books he'd just bought. He was on his way home from the bookshop, it seems. It was just a matter of working out who the books belonged to, and we found the bloke to arrest him.
Old books, you say?
Yes, my lord. I have a photograph here of the scene of the crime taken immediately after the incident.
Ah, yes, I can clearly see the books to which you are referring. I will take that photographic print as evidence, please.
You Nipponese are a spineless breed, too cowardly to admit defeat, denying everything despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary.
Well,
Forgive me, Lord Van Zykes, but the defendant is not denying everything as you put it. What are you doing? Do go on. Mr. Natsume has admitted to playing some part in the incident. Isn't that right? Well, now that you mention it, when we visited him in the prison yesterday, he did tell us what had all happened.
As I was walking along the accused baby, I had to overtake her. But she had a knife. Oh no! Oh, she's dead. Oh, I ran fast. Accursed lodgings.
A green overcoat.
Well, that's exactly what the woman in that print is wearing. Oh my, a photographic print in full color. What will the world come up with next?
The defendant has done nothing more than admit he fled the scene of a terrifying incident. That does not mean he's guilty of the heinous crime of stabbing a woman in the back. There was nobody else there at the time, just the two of them, the victim and the accused. In other words, there is nobody else who could possibly have stabbed the woman. A fact that the accused concedes. Ugh.
It seems this cross-examination could prove to be pivotal, counsel. Proceed, please.
Yes, my lord. I have to use this cross-examination to turn the tables. Yeah, this is every cross-examination. It's like a shonen anime. We're always on the brink of defeat, you know? Alright, we got some pressing to do. Actually, let me look at the evidence we got given. Let's have a gander at the knife. Flip this bad boy open, please. This is remarkably clean. It's missing its tip. Like, the tip is broken. Oh, look here, Mr. Naruhodo. Just at the tip. A small piece of the blade appears to be missing. You're right. Well spotted. I wonder what could have happened to it. Yes, you don't think it could still be lodged in the victim, do you? Oh dear, I do hope not. That sounds terribly painful. Doesn't look like there's anything else going on here. It's very clean for having been stabbed into somebody, though, isn't it? Like, the last murder weapon wasn't clean. So, secondhand booked receipt. We should look at the backside of that. Didn't want to click on that. Can't do that. Okay. Let's have a gander at the picture. Nothing obviously stands out to me yet. So, let's start pressing. Nope, go back, please. I would like you to press.
Hold it!
A light fog, you say?
Well, light for London. You could see the opposite side of the street for once. Not much farther, though.
That's light, is it?
Around these parts, yes. Not something I'd expect a Japanese fellow like yourself to know, of course.
I've read that London is famous for its fog, but in my country people usually imagine that gives the city a rather beautiful appearance. How quaint.
Yes, well, it's not something us Londoners tend to romanticize, as I expect you can appreciate.
I see.
At this time of year, the fog causes a large number of accidents, especially when it's heavy. Sometimes you can't even see your own hand at the end of your arm.
Indeed, the other day I was nearly trampled by horses before I could see the carriage they were pulling. Ugh, it's a sad sign and I should remember to stop, look, and listen. However, on the day that concerns us, the fog was somewhat lighter than usual. A fact no doubt lamented by the accused.
Visibility was good.
There was no one else but the accused and the victim. How are you able to state that with certainty? Quite simply, my learned friend, because that is what the witnesses to the crime have told us. Ah yes, Inspector Grenson mentioned them. That's right, one of them is a policeman, I believe.
That is correct, ma'am.
Then we must hear their testimony. The prosecution will of course call them to the stand, should it be necessary. But, wait a minute. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon in the middle of winter, it would have been dark already. No matter how light the fog would have been, no one could have seen. I'm unaware of the situation on your tiny island in the east. But here, in the capital of Great Britain, all main roads are illuminated in the night by gas streetlights. Ah. The prosecution believes there would have been ample light by which to witness the crime. Quite. Here in London, for the first time in history, mankind has completely conquered the darkness. Which means we really need to hear those witnesses. If I could just get through the fog of this cross-examination, maybe we'll be able to. It seems the counsel for the defense is taking stock. Continue with your testimony, Inspector. The blue approached from behind. Collapsed. From behind, you say? That's right, as you can see from this print. Yes, quite so, Inspector. The handle of the weapon is clearly protruding from the victim's back. And you say this poor woman, Miss Green, remains in a critical condition, comatose no less. There's remarkably little blood coming out of that wound. I'm afraid so, my lord. Yes, she's being treated at Bart's. I was hopeful that she'd come round before the trial started so I could take a statement, but it wasn't to be. Yes, that is indeed a pity. It would have been most illuminating to hear the victim's own account. Luck is on your client's side, it seems. On the contrary, my client has been exceedingly unlucky. Your force of tone is seriously undermined by those disturbingly wide eyes, I'm afraid. Jesus Christ. Accused ran off, scattering his belongings. Mr. Natsume's belongings? I think you'll find us all in that photographic print of the crime scene. Yes, what are the names of these books? We could compare them to the receipt that he got the same day. That's right. No, this is Gregson. That's right, my lord. Second-hand books. They were irreparably damaged after falling in the snow, of course. What pussy-ass books? The accused could easily have carried all 3 books in one hand, which means his other hand would have been free to wield a knife, for example. He's very clever, isn't he? What do you mean? He's made it extremely hard for you to assert that Mr. Natsume had his hands full with his books. He's managed to close the one avenue of escape we might have had before it was there. You mean to say the defendant was holding his belongings as he thrust the knife into the woman's back? That must be what happened, my lord. Yes. There's been a number... Yeah, what are the books called? The defendant apparently visits a bookshop on a daily basis. Yes, so I understand. A shop full of old English literature. I commend the accused on the lofty subject matter of his scholarly attention. The bloke's room was stacked floor to ceiling with those musty old books. Can you tell us more about the bookshop in question, please? Well, if I must. I have to ask you to look at the street map again, I'm afraid. The closest second-hand bookshop to the accused's lodgings is this place here, Bob and Books. This is gonna be really important because we're probably gonna find out like the victim was going this way and he was coming this way. A little place on the corner of Briar Road and Meerschaum Street. As it happens, the accused is currently living in lodgings on the other side of Briar Road at the opposite end. Which means it doesn't take a genius to work out the route he would have taken home. Something like this. Yes, I concur with your conclusion, Inspector. The defendant would have certainly passed the scene of the crime on his way home. Mr. Naruhodo, I think what the Inspector just told us could turn out to be of vital importance. Yes, I agree. The most important point was the bookshop's location. The crucial detail in what you just told the court inspector is the location of the bookshop. I couldn't agree more. So, where is it exactly? Are you winding me up, sunshine? I just explained that. I got the map out and every route blooming ink and drew the bloke's route home on for you. And I distinctly remember seeing you nod along. Oh, yes, of course. I didn't take it in.
The book. Oh, what? Oh, no, wait. The book fucking name. Hold on. Where's that, I should have noticed that it wasn't called Bourbon Books. Yes, you're right. Yes, I've already figured out. What was it called? Your Books, of course. Okay, yeah, uh-huh. Please continue with your testimony. I was so busy thinking, yes, we can prove that he didn't do it for... I turned auto on. How the fuck do you turn auto off? Please turn off auto. What is the auto button? Hold it! Ugh. No, please, let me turn this off. F. There we go, thank you. No, get me out of here. Let me go back. I was so tunnel visioned on the route that he took that I didn't even think that the bookshop could have a different name to what it actually was. No, it was... Yes, this one. Hold it! There's a lesson to be learned in there. Don't tunnel vision on the piece of evidence you want to find. Yeah, Bourbon Books. The name. Inspector Gregson, may I ask you a favor? What? Would you kindly add the name of the bookshop to your formal testimony? I believe it may be of vital importance. Maybe. Oh, well, you know, I mean, yes. It could be a very important clue. It is. Why can't we just call it now? Please revise your testimony. Yes, me lord. Alright. Yep, Bourbon Books. Incorrect. Let me show you this bad boy. If I could just stop you there, Inspector. Why is it, Sunshine? I'm a busy man, you know. This is a receipt that we found in Mr. Natsume's room. It was issued on the day of the incident and details the purchase of 3 second-hand books. And you found that in the accused's room, did you? Yes, but the point is not where the receipt was found, but the name of the shop printed. Go on. This receipt was issued from a bookshop called Your Books. Your Books? Y-O-R-E, I suppose? Yes, my lord. So Mr. Natsume did indeed purchase a number of books at a second-hand shop that day. However, the bookshop in question was not Bourbon Books. Eh? What? Inspector, do you know of this other bookshop? Yes, sir. Your Books is another second-hand bookshop not far from Bourbon Books. It's just that, well, such a small place, I didn't think the accused would have known about it. But in fact, it is the bookshop from which the defendant visited that day. And this receipt proves it. Yes, for what difference it makes. Wherever the man purchased his musty tomes, it makes no difference in the final analysis. I disagree. I mean, after all, I have the street map here, if that might be of help. Oh, yes, thank you. Have a look at this, please. If the defendant had been returning from Bourbon Books, then yes, he would have almost certainly passed the place where Miss Green was attacked. However, if we take into account the fact that he was actually at another bookshop, it may very well turn out he wouldn't have passed that location at all. Could that be true? My, it is rather depends on whether this other bookshop is, but I do declare it may be a possibility. Is that right, Mr. Lawyer, sir, what you just said? Absolutely. It absolutely could be. So tell us where the fucking bookshop is, please. Inspector Gregson, where is this Yours Books establishment? Well, obviously we looked into that. Turns out that Your Books is just here on the next corner of Meersham Street going east. So now he could have easily gone this way. And there you have it. You can clearly see now. Oh. Yeah, it still kind of ends up there, but, you know, he could have gone down the other street now. My learned Nipponese friend is obviously in training to be a clown, the way he regales us with such witticisms. To your future career in the circus. You put that glass down now, put it down for you. I didn't think I needed to spell it out, but here we go. If the accused was coming home from your books instead...
No, he could have definitely missed this then, because I thought that was a little further down the street than it was, because if he went this way, he would have just missed it.
There's no doubt he would still have passed the place where the victim was stabbed.
No, there's definitely doubt. Both routes are... There's now not obviously one way shorter route.
Yes, thank you, Inspector.
Allow me to reiterate for my learned, if somewhat slow, Nipponese friend. Wherever the man purchased his musty tomes, it makes no difference in the final analysis.
As I suspected, you can't fool me, and I don't suggest you try.
What did I say? I've had enough of this.
Beg your pardon? Terribly sorry, but would you mind repeating that?
Mr. Naruhodo, we mustn't give up. What do you mean? If the prosecution's assertion is correct, the members of the jury may well decide Natsume is guilty. We must think. We must consider the assertion just put forward by the prosecution carefully. They claim they must have passed the... Raise an objection. The assertion just made by the prosecution is fundamentally flawed.
Explain yourself, counsel.
Yes, my lord. You can see what I mean on this map. When returning from your books to his lodgings, Mr. Natsume could have followed the route suggested by the prosecution. However, that isn't the only conceivable route to take between them. If the defendant used these streets, look what happens. He arrives back at his lodgings without passing the location.
Objection!
Talking back to a clown is a fool's errand, of course. However, I feel compelled to point out that route is what is commonly referred to as the long way round. Not really. On a cold winter's night, why would any man choose to take a longer route home? Well, the answer is extremely simple. He wouldn't. In other words, the accused took the obvious route back to his lodgings, and it is the obvious perpetrator of the crime. But, yes, I've got it. Obviously, we must ask the man himself. Ask Mr. Natsume. I have already informed the court of the accused's response to such questioning. He claims he has no recollection.
That's right. As I said, the bloke seems to spend his time outside wandering aimlessly from A to B. That day was no exception. He says he doesn't remember where he was or which route he took home.
I don't believe this. I thank you, my learned friend, and suggest that we do not waste any more of the court's time by wandering aimlessly around this subject. Pray, what say you insightful jurors?
But... I agree with Lord Van Zykes. Wholeheartedly and in every way.
What? I don't believe it. Does this mean?
We members of the jury are completely convinced now.
Very well. In that case, I hereby call upon all members to present your findings.
Guilty. Guilty.
Guilty. Guilty. Guilty.
Things could be going better.
It would appear the jury's leading is unanimous.
To the insightful members of the jury, I applaud your brave resolve. You serve Queen and country admirably. Mr. Naruhodo. No, not yet.
It's not over yet. I have one chance to sway the opinion.
I have to tip the balance of the scales the other way. Somehow. Those are the eyes of Quarry not yet willing to give up and die. So I presume you intend to wield your rights again in this trial? Rights of the defense written into antiquated British law that should have been buried long ago. Call it antiquated if you will, but it's the defense's prerogative to carry out a summation examination if it so chooses. Very well, counsel. In accordance with the letter of the law, we shall proceed with a summation examination. Are the members of the jury ready, Mr. Foreman?
Of course we're ready. I'm all too familiar with that Nipponese whippersnapper and his onkus refusal to throw in his alley.
Very well then, ladies and gentlemen. You will explain on what grounds you have determined the defendant to be guilty. Judicial findings.
For pity's sake, that little Nipponese oddity already admitted it himself, didn't he?
If he said that a woman in green collapsed before his eyes, why, it can only have been the victim.
The man wouldn't have gone around the houses on his way back from the bookshop, not in winter.
So the poor woman was attacked from behind, was she? How dreadful.
I really don't care. Can't we just wrap this up now? I've got work to be doing.
Oh, your books. Yes, nice shop that. But bourbon books? No, not worth a visit. I am compelled by your reasoning, lads. With only minor exceptions, the reasons for finding the defendant are all too clear. Guilty are all too clear. When the stabbing occurred, the only two people at the scene were the victim and the accused. And the accused himself has admitted to seeing the victim in the green overcoat sink to the ground before his eyes. Furthermore, we have heard from the inspector that the defendant then fled the scene. I must say, I have ample grounds to convict this man already. Oh dear, the judge appears convinced. Ugh, why did he have to run away like that? How are we supposed to believe in some phantom attacker that no one could see? This is impossible. How can I possibly make a case with the defense? Mr. Naruhodo, this is no time for grumbling. If we want to continue the trial. Yes, I know. I have to turn the tide. Well, 4 of them at least. Exactly. We have no choice but to forge onward. You have the floor, counsel. Begin your summation examination. Yes, my lord. Just need to keep this trial going. Come on, you can do it. Alright, so none of those sounded outwardly admit anything contradictory. He said that a woman in green collapsed before his eyes. It could have only been the victim. Or he admitted himself. Wouldn't have gone around the houses. How dreadful. Don't care. Not worth a visit. So we're gonna have to press a little on this one, it looks like. Excuse me, but aren't you...
Yes, that's right. I was in the witness stand myself just 2 days ago.
Yes, I had a feeling I knew your face. Or the side of it, anyway. If I remember correctly, you're a banker, aren't you?
That's right. After the gold rush went down under, I came back to London to work. And it was all going swimmingly until you started fossicking around. Bruce Fairplay was a man of repute.
Sorry?
Don't think I've forgotten how you treated me the other day. You had me and that young man pegged as criminals.
Your Honor, I feel like there's a conflict of interest in this juror. You know, water under the bridge.
Now there's all sorts of rumors buzzing around, and the police have been badgering me non-stop.
If I could turn back the clock.
Well, anyway, I don't know about that, but at least I'm in the clear now. And free to make up my own mind about who's guilty and who isn't.
Thank goodness. Oh dear, I wonder what's become of Mr. First. It could have only been the victim. You're right that at the time of the incident, the defendant admits to having seen someone wearing a green coat. Well, quite, that's precisely my point. Clearly that someone wearing green was the victim. And clearly that funny little Nipponese man with the disturbing mustache is the culprit. But let us not forget, madam, the defendant vehemently denies attacking the woman.
Why, of course he does. If he admits to stabbing her, his life is over. The man is obviously a liver-faced coward, honestly, claiming the woman has simply collapsed before his eyes.
But if that's a lie, as you're suggesting, do you think he could have concocted something more credible?
Oh, I really couldn't say. After all, you are... foreign. Who's to say what goes through your funny little minds?
I could tell what's going through my funny little mind right now.
I do declare the man has already made the admission. He himself has stated there was nobody else around. Surely the conclusion is obvious. No one else could possibly have committed this awful crime. If no one else could have done it, the accused must be the man. Really, it couldn't be more simple.
Your argument is compelling in its simplicity, I must admit.
Oh my, you are too kind, my lord.
That went well for her.
Man wouldn't have gone around the houses on his way, but...
No. What was I... How was I talking for this guy? Fuck if I can remember, dude. Got like 12 people bouncing around the room. You can't deny that there are other routes Mr. Natsume could have taken.
Oh, yes, like you drew on the map, you mean? What was it? Calabash Road or something?
Precisely.
Well, it seems to me that was what counts is whether the little Japanese fellow actually went that way or not.
Well, yes, that's true.
At the moment, there's no proof that shows he did, is there?
Well, yes, that's true.
As I understand it, the accused himself doesn't remember which way he went, does he?
Well, yes, that's annoyingly true.
Winter nights are cold and dark. The way I see it, you'd want to get home as quickly as possible.
Well, yes. Why is all this true?
So really, the only thing that makes sense is that he went home along Briar Road.
Ugh.
I've given it a lot of thought, you know. I didn't just make up my mind on a whim that he did it. I mean, if there was some logical reason why he might have gone Calabash Road way, it'd be different. I'd be happy to reconsider my position in that case, I would.
Are we gonna actually put him against the old man? Is this honestly gonna work? Because if he needs some sort of evidence he didn't go around that way, but Bourbon Books not being worth a visit could be a way, or a reason.
Objection.
Those two statements clearly contradict each other. Okay. You never know. You never know. Alright, so... Poor woman was attacked from behind. How dreadful. I did not mean to open that.
Whatever is the matter, young man?
You're the wife of Mr. Gary, aren't you? The landlord?
The master's wife. Where do you get your ideas, sir? I'm the maid, you understand.
She's keeping up that charade. That's gonna be awkward. Why didn't you mention this yesterday? That you'd been selected for the jury?
Well, I was told not to mention it to anyone until the day of the trial. It was in the letter I received. The instructions were very clear, so I'm afraid I had no choice.
I see. Anyway, Mr. Natsume, the defendant, takes lodgings in your master's house, doesn't he?
Yes, that's right, although he's only been in a little over a week now.
And in that time, surely you must have taken stock of his character. Does Mr. Natsume look like the kind of man who would commit a crime? She's gonna say yes. She said yes yesterday.
He's just the sort.
What?
Spending all his time in that dark, dingy room, sporting that unscrupulous mustache. The man never speaks, and don't get me started on those shifty eyes. All the neighbors are talking about him. I've heard them, you know. People think he must be building a bomb in there or something.
Oh dear, poor Mr. Natsume. How could people say such terrible things? He's just a harmless bookworm. Nothing more. You just call him a worm. Anyway, I better be careful inviting this maid to speak. Don't really care. So... A man's life is on the line here, sir. This will take as long as it takes.
Don't get clever with me, son. My life's on the line too, and so is my family's. The likes of you wouldn't understand, but a laborer like me can't afford to take time off. If I don't work, I don't eat, and neither do the wife and kids.
Oh, I see. That must be very hard.
I go to the union every morning to find out what needs doing. If you're late and the work's taken, it's tough. This time of year, there's water and gas supply pipes that bursted left, right, and center. They're after cheap labor to get the roads dug up to fix it. It's a hard slog from dusk till dawn, it is.
So, you were digging up the roads on the day of the incident, were you?
That's right. In fact, if I remember rightly, it was just around the corner where it all happened. Oh, fuck. What? Another coin. Where was it? It was Mercham Street, it was. Mercham Street? On the map, Mr. Nahoda, there are only 3 named streets. Juror number 5, I need you to add that piece of evidence to your statement, please. What's the point of that? Can't we get this business over with now? Please, sir, it's important. Fine, I'll do it then. Now we can pit those 2. I was digging up Merchant Street till dusk till dawn. There we go. So,
Objection!
those 2 statements are clearly at odds with one another. At odds, counsel. Explain yourself. Please don't point. It wasn't me, I swear. Eh? What? I just want to get this done and dusted. Well, juror number 3. Oh, what? Me, sir? What do you mean? Juror number 5's words now are extremely significant. Let's take a moment to consider the implications of what's been said on our map of the local area. On the day in question, Mr. Natsume visited the bookshop to purchase a number of second-hand books. And on the same day, as we now know, there was work being carried out on Mercham Street, making it impassable, which means that the defendant's home route could not have taken him along Mercham Street and down Briar Road. Oh, yes, of course. What do you think, sir? Well, yeah, you can't argue with that, really, can you? We must have had a good 2 yards or more of the pavement up. Every gentleman and gentlewoman that came along had to turn back and go the other way. And yet you just went along with this. So the only conclusion is this. The defendant must have taken the longer route back to his lodgings. Yeah, I suppose he must have. Well, I suppose that must be right, eh? Juror number 3, you said the following. The man wouldn't have gone around the houses on his way back from the bookshop, but we see now that he had no choice. Yes. My lord, Mr. Judge, sir, if I may. Yes? I don't think in all good conscience that I can say the man's guilty now. Yep, I'd like to see this trial continue so we can get to the bottom of what really happened. What about you, sir? Oh, me? Well, alright then. If there's a hole in the prosecution's argument, it should be filled in. That's what I say. We did it. I've managed to change a couple of minds at least to strengthen our position somewhat. Yes, and it will prompt the other members of the jury to reconsider their stances as well. They'll be asking themselves if their current leanings are really right or not. Now, if only we could identify one more clue or discrepancy. We might be able to tip the balance. Yes, that's what we have to do. Von Zykes is looking to bring this trial to an early end. That's what we have to prevent. Thank you, counsel. On with the summation examination, please. Yes, my lord. So we can't do them, I guess we're gonna press the old man now.
Hold it!
Sorry. Fold it, you say? Fold what?
No. What I said was hold it. What I wanted to ask was, do you visit your books often?
I like the old books they have in there, yes. I enjoy reading them over a nice cup of tea. That's my daily routine, you see. Same thing every day, including the day you're all talking about.
And at what time did you visit your books?
I was picking out books in there all afternoon, and I would have been just before 5 that I left.
You're wearing a green coat.
That's my daily routine, you see. Same thing every day, including the day you're talking about.
Just before 5, you say? Are you sure about that time?
Oh yes, no mistakes there. I remember it well. I'm not about to forget that day in a hurry, not after the dreadful time I had.
What do you mean?
Well, I was walking down Calabash Road when I slipped on the ice and donked my head.
Oh my god!
It's always worse after the snow stopped falling. That's when it's most slippery. Marked myself clean out, I did. I really thought my number was up.
Wait a minute. Let me get this straight. This happened on Calabash Road?
That's right. I live in Cornpipe, you see. Heading down Calabash Road is the quickest way for me to get back from your books.
Number 6, I must insist that you add that information to your statement.
Oh, sorry. Extremely sick. No, I'm quite alright now.
That's absolutely incredible. Alright. You couldn't have been anyone other. Oh, well, let me introduce you to juror number 6.
Objection.
Those two statements show a flaw in the juror's reasoning. A flaw? What are you talking about, counsel? Well, juror number 2, juror number 6.
My, whatever do you mean, sir?
I think perhaps the old man didn't hear you. Unbelievable. It's not like I was loud or anything. There's at least one fact which can be sure here. The bookshop receipt found in the defendant's room clearly indicates that on the day of the attack, he had been to your books and purchased a number of second-hand titles. He then returned home on foot.
But the man says he has no recollection of his return journey.
That's correct. But what he does remember is seeing someone appear in front of him on the way. Someone in a green overcoat who suddenly collapsed on the pavement before his eyes.
Yes, we are well aware of that. The poor young woman who was stabbed.
Objection.
Can we really be sure of that, madam?
My, whatever do you mean?
I'm sure you heard juror number 6's account of what happened to him that day. That same afternoon, there was somebody else apart from the victim who was wearing a green overcoat and who fell over on the icy streets.
Oh, my. My goodness. You mean?
That's right. I'm referring, of course, to the hard of hearing juror number 6.
Are you really suggesting that that person in the green overcoat whom the defendant saw collapse was the jolly old gentleman at the end of the bench here with me today?
That is entirely possible, yes. After all, the old man has a somewhat similar build to the victim.
Well, look at that.
My goodness me. Sorry, you need to pee?
And crucially, we know precisely where the old man in the green overcoat fell. On Calabash Road. Therefore, if the person who Mr. Natsume saw collapsing in front of him was in fact juror number 6, it means the defendant must have taken the long route back to his lodgings. And if that's true, then clearly, the crime scene on Briar Road where the woman was stabbed was not on his way home.
Oh my.
You idiot, old man. If you hadn't been so daft as to be roaming about there, we'd have boxed this off hours ago.
And really, what were you thinking wearing such a befuddling coat? What do you say to me? Is it a crime for the elderly to walk the streets these days? Is it a crime to slip over on the ice? Is it a crime to keep up with the latest styles and wear a beautiful green overcoat? Is it? My lord, I do hope it won't cause any inconvenience, but you'd like to change your leaning, I presume? I do declare I would. I would like to call for a verdict of not guilty.
Thank you.
And I would too.
What?
Is it a crime to change your mind? Is it? Well...
That was unbelievably convenient. Well, that summation examination has concluded with a rather large shift in opinion. The ayes 2, the noes 4, so the noes have it, not guilty, they say, which means we no longer have a consensus among the jury. The trial will continue. Could it seem churlish of me to drink from my hallowed chalice moments before raising an objection? Only to crush it in disgust. Pray forgive the discourtesy. Lord Van Zykes? It seems I must retract my earlier remark. What do you mean? I mistakenly credited these jurors with intelligence by describing them as insightful. Yet we have just witnessed them falling for a cheap trick performed by an Eastern entertainer. Eh?
Whatever do you mean?
I haven't tricked anyone. Everything I've said is the truth. Indeed, Stalwart juror number 5 was undoubtedly repairing the road, as he claims. I believe you said it was a good 2 yards of the pavement which you had excavated, sir?
That's right. Took me the whole day and they paid me measly tuppence for it.
Now, my learned Nipponese friend, tell me, do you have any notion of the distance that 2 yards represents?
Well, if I'm honest, I don't have a clue. 2 yards is a little less than 2 meters.
Less than 2 meters? That's not much at all. In other words, a distance readily vaulted by anyone of moderate vigor. Does he look like moderate vigor? Would you not agree, my stalwart friend?
Eh? Me?
Well, I can't say you're wrong, no.
What?
And did you, perchance, erect a sign to prevent pedestrians from passing the side of your works?
I wouldn't dream of it. What a waste of time. No coaches would have a hope of passing anyway, and we just turned many gentlefolk back when they did. Kid just jump right over us all the time.
The accused is no gentleman, as far as I can see. I have little doubt, however, that he could spring over a 2-yard trench in his meanderings around town.
Ah! Is that true? Is it?
The incontrovertible truth is that the books just purchased by the accused were found at the scene of the crime. There can be no doubt that on his way back to his lodgings, Mr. Natsume walked down Briar Road. I mean, what are the names of the books? And Old Man.
Cold man, you can talk.
You say that around 5 o'clock in question you slipped and fell on Calabash Road. Pray, was there a suspicious-looking Nipponese behind you at the time?
Oh, I can't say as I remember.
You don't remember? How about a wager, my learned friend? You say it was this old man that the accused saw, but I would lay 1,000 to 1 against you being able to prove it.
Order, order. Lord Van Zykes, explain yourself.
My lord.
If you have such a trenchant argument of your sleeve, then why in the world would you not proffer it during the summation examination? He's not allowed to talk.
I wanted to give this young foreign student the sightseeing experience he had no doubt come for. I wanted him to see for himself how the opinion of the jury is so readily swayed. You also said last trial the prosecution was not allowed to speak during it, but you know. But my hospitality has its limits, and they have been reached, I feel. So, my learned friend, today's sightseeing tour of London is now over.
What are you talking about?
My lord, the prosecution requests permission to call its next witnesses to the stand.
Granted. Bailiff, bring forth the witnesses.
Its next witnesses. Yes, we talked about this. Eyewitnesses, the policeman. Alright, no matter who Van Zykes brings to court with his witnesses, no matter what they say, I believe in Soseki-san. He said, I know he's innocent. And I'll keep believing to the very end. Uh-huh. Witnesses, please state your names and occupations for the court.
Constable Roly Beatty? Roly Beatty, sir. Nothing to report on the streets, sir. And I'm Miss Beatty. Patricia's my name. I'm proud to say I'm this young town hero's wife.
What's the story here?
Well, in truth, we've not been married long. In fact, we celebrated our first anniversary only the other day.
No, it was your husband I was asking about. He seems tired. Hardly surprising. Whilst being an honorable occupation, patrolling the beat is the most demanding work in the world.
Oh, really? I'm sure I've heard that before, actually.
Indeed, apart from a rare days off, our gallant officers trudge some 20 miles a day, you know.
They patrol boarding houses, pubs, collect taxes, survey the streets, check the meters are reading true. And they're responsible for keeping the streets clean and lighting and extinguishing our streetlights. There are a number of items on that list that don't sound much like policing. I wouldn't be falling asleep on my feet, I'd have collapsed long ago. But it goes without saying that a policeman's primary duty is the apprehension of criminals. Even when he's off duty, a constable is expected to investigate and resolve any crimes on his beat. For the London Bobby is a man of honor. Yeah. And a man of slumber. On the day in question, this man and his wife were walking down Briar Road in the opposite direction. They witnessed the incident as it occurred. Is that not correct, Mr. and Mrs. Beat? That's right, sir. Isn't it, Rowley?
Constable Rowley Beat, sir. Nothing to report on the streets, sir.
What a great witness he's going to be. Very well. I'd like to hear your formal testimonies. You will tell the court exactly what you saw.
Yes, sir.
It was our wedding anniversary and Rowley was taking me out for a meal. There was no time to change after work. Anyway, two silhouettes appeared out of the fog on the pavement in front of us. All of a sudden, one of them just collapsed on the floor. Then the other scattered something before running off. We ran straight over, of course, and went for help at the nearby police box. It was definitely that Japanese man in the dock. Both Rowley and I saw him clear as day.
Well, that is an extremely compelling testimony.
Oh dear, this policeman and his wife are claiming to have positively identified him. If their testimony is true, the alternative course of events that you've established in the Summation Examination will be quashed. It's death now, in fact, because that alternative was never viable in the first place. What an unfortunate bechancing, and on your wedding anniversary too. Oh, I know, but I still managed to go out for the evening with my man. I thank the Lord for that. Gosh, the life of a London Bobby sounds very hard indeed. Indeed. However, this cross-examination will be over in minutes. You may well have time to rest this afternoon. What do you mean by that? My learned friend, the witnesses saw the face of the accused fleeing the scene. They are testifying under oath that it is without doubt the accused, Mr. Soseki Natsume. And one of these witnesses is a policeman, no less, so you have to appreciate the gravity of the situation, I'm sure. Except that man's so tired, his wife did all the talking. Enough preamble, counsel for the defense. Cross-examine. Yes, yes, my lord. So, we're gonna have to press on this one, because, you know, not a lot going on in there. It was our wedding anniversary. There was no time to change. No time to change after work, you say? Are you also a member of the police? No. Oh no, sadly not. It's a job for strapping young men only. Women, children, and the elderly can't even apply. Well, I think you probably saw why children and you can probably see why children and the elderly can't do the job, can't you? I think Rowley looks ever so handsome in that uniform. It suits you down to the ground, doesn't it, darling?
What? Oh, I just finished my beat. Pat and I were heading back to the station. I wasn't actually planning on getting changed there.
Is he talking in his sleep? That's creepy.
Oh no, Rowley, I much prefer you in uniform. Sometimes I don't recognize you when I see you in plain clothes.
That doesn't seem healthy.
Kindly adhere to the point. You were going for a meal. That's right, sir, yes. Although I was fit to drop, to be honest, after spending the whole day on my feet. But policing is my life, sir. As long as I'm proud owner of this, I'll serve my city and my queen to the end.
What's that now?
My warrant card, sir. Proof that I'm a London copper. It has the noble founding principles of the force written on it as a reminder to all us policemen of our sworn duty. to patrol the streets of London and uphold the peace of the common man. Sir! And for such a noble cause, I cover 20 miles every single day without fail and without grumble. Because I know that the plodding on my boots is all Londoners need to hear to feel safe and secure.
So, fighting crime doesn't appear to come into it then.
But sir, just on that particular day, I was looking forward to celebrating my wedding anniversary. Mrs. B puts up with a lot being married to a bobby like me. I wanted to show my dear wife how much I care. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly.
Oh, what a charming couple. Young love, if a little over the top.
And then kindly describe what happened next.
Two silhouettes appeared.
Hold it!
Two silhouettes? That's right, they were coming towards us, walking up Briar Road in the opposite direction. There was a rather plump figure, followed by a scrawny, thin-looking man. That does sound exactly like the victim pictured, and Mr. Natsume. Yes, unfortunately it does. And you're certain that at that time there was nobody else nearby?
Oh yes, quite certain. It was dark, but there were streetlights on Briar Road, you see. No, there was nobody else around at all. Isn't that right, my darling? What? Ah, yes, that's right, of course. There was a light fog on the ground, but Briar Road is dead straight, and you could see a fairly long way down the pavement. Then there's the street lighting as well. I didn't see any other pedestrians.
Before sleep takes a firm hold, your answer, please, Mr. Beat. Are you quite sure of what you've just said?
Yes, sir. As a cop who spends all day, every day, keeping watch on the street, I'd swear to it, sir. I'm as sure as my love for Patricia is true. Oh, Pat. Oh, Rolly.
Disgusting. They're still maintaining there was nobody else. It's starting to seem like that must be how it really happened. It's beginning to seem like there's nowhere to run. Well, that didn't stop Mr. Natsume. He fled the scene all too convincingly.
Thank you, I believe we have a reasonably clear idea now. What happened in the crucial moments that followed?
All of a sudden, one of them just collapsed to the floor.
Hold it!
Scattered something? What do you mean by that?
Oh, well, I couldn't quite make out what it was at the time, but then we got closer, we realized what it was. Didn't we, darling? What? Oh, yes, that's right. It was some old books.
I see. Old books.
Yes, sir. The culprit had dropped a number of them around where the victim lay on the pavement. Indeed, as clearly pictured in this photographic print. That rotten Japanese man did that when he did the deed.
Let's not forget it remains to be established the defendant was the attacker.
But we saw him. It was the man in the dock without question, sir. The moustache, the hunched back, the cat-like eyes, the taut mouth, the snub nose, everything.
Any other insults you?
That's right, he looked down at that poor defenseless woman with those terrifying, intense eyes, and then suddenly threw his books onto the pavement and ran away.
I see. This is tough. They seem as if they're telling the truth here. May I remind the court that this unambiguous testimony comes from a policeman and his wife. Now please, continue.
Yes, sir.
For nearby police box. Was it your husband who went to fetch help?
Oh, no, I went. I may not be a police officer myself, but I am the proud wife of one after all. Isn't that right, my darling? What? Oh, yes, that's right. I asked Mrs. Beat to go. I was off duty at that point, but a bobby's never truly off duty, of course, so I felt obliged to stay and guard the scene. Very laudable, Mr. Beat, preserving the scene of the crime. That's why I sent Patricia. I told her where to find the right police box.
Forgive my ignorance, but what exactly do you mean by the right police box?
Depends on a crime's location, you see, as to who deals with it.
where the woman was stabbed wasn't actually on my beat, so I told Patricia to go to the police box for the beat the incident fell under so she could go and report it. I ran there as quickly as I could and asked the man for the bobby on duty. There is nothing more potent than a young couple in love working together, you know.
And thanks to your swift response, the case was quickly resolved. The actions of 2 model citizens.
Oh, please, you're making us blush, isn't he, darling?
Yes, sir. What Patricia says, sir.
Let's move on, shall we? It was definitely him. But surely you wouldn't have been able to see his face just by the light of the gas streetlights, would you?
We absolutely could. Us Londoners have exceptional eyesight, I'll have you know.
Right.
The light from the streetlights was more than enough. And my husband already told you that the fog was only light, didn't he?
Yes, and what of the fog?
We're famous for it across the globe, I believe. But it's an absolute menace to those of us who have to live with it, of course. Oh, it is. When it's thick, you can't even see the hand at the end of your own arm.
Yes, alright, could you stop shaking your husband?
The constant fog makes our eyes very sharp. That's why we can tell you for sure and certain that it was that little Japanese man. Can't we, darling? What? Ah, yes, it was the accused, and no mistake. The mustache, the hunched back, the cat-like eyes, the tout mouth, the snub nose. Unmistakable, sir.
As far as the couple's testimony is concerned, there can't be any question. If it was suspectedly someone they saw running from the scene of the crime. So that's it? That's their entire testimony? What do you think? Well, I hate to admit it, but on hearing the testimony, it really does seem as though Mr. and Mrs. Beats saw what they say they saw. Mr. Natsume running away from the scene on Briar Road that day. Yes, I feel the same. So if that's true, where does it leave us? The members of the jury are sure to call for a guilty verdict after this. Oh no, then what do we do? If Kazuma-sama were here. What are you trying to say? I think he would try and find a contradiction. Their statements about seeing Mr. Natsume is unequivocal. Calling that into question won't help, but if you could identify some other part of their testimony. Right. Put simply, we must focus on finding a discrepancy. Yes. So what's the discrepancy then?
Mr. Lawyer, sir, can I ask you something?
Oh, yes, of course. What is it?
Well, you keep asking us all these questions about everything we've told you, so... It seems like you don't believe our testimony. Is that right? Well, out with it.
What? No. It's really not that at all.
My husband's a policeman, remember? And I know what I saw. I remember every last detail. Everything. Oh, I know. What about the books the man dropped? I could tell you the names of every...
Please do.
And you dare to question how reliable my testimony is? That will do. No, it won't do at all. That Japanese lawyer has no idea what I'm capable of. Even if I decide to forgive him for insulting us, don't think for a minute that Rolly will.
I really don't mean to cause offense. Please put your husband's fists down. Please tell me the name of the books. Perhaps you would like the opportunity to supplement your testimony. Might that appease you?
Oh, thank you, my lord. That would settle things nicely. Wouldn't it, darling?
Please. Wait, the 4 books? Never mind, we found a different problem. There's only 3.
Objection.
So, you're saying that there were 4 books?
That's right, I remember all of them. The pictures of Monsieur Somebody, What's It Yearnings, A Meal for Someone, and the Thingamy's Something.
Uh-huh. So, none of the same ones, then? Wait, no. Picture of Monsieur Somebody, so picture of Monsieur Blank, Something Yearnings, A Meal for Somebody. Oh, no. Okay, these are correct. So which one's A Meal for Canterbury Yearnings? So it's... The Thingamy's Something? Was that the one that's missing? I have a terrible memory. Okay, look, leave me alone. Yes, so that's the stray book. I'm sorry, Mrs. Beat, but there is a fundamental flaw in that statement.
Oh no. What flaw?
Simply that at the scene of the crime, there are 3 books, not 4.
What?
Have a good look at this photographic print of the scene. As you can see clearly, there are only 3 books.
But no, that can't be. I saw them. Oh, I know what it is. Yes, you can't fool me.
Sorry.
That old lump of a dead lady. That lady's so large, her corpse is blocking the view of the 4th book.
Let's at least try to remember that poor woman isn't even dead, even if we're insulting. No, I'm sorry, Mrs. Beat. But Mr. Natsume could not possibly have dropped the 4 books.
Why not?
Fascinating. And from your assured tone, something you can readily substantiate with evidence, I presume? Ah, evidence. I can. Yes, I was just consulting it.
Take that!
The evidence is right here, in the form of this bookshop receipt. From your books. Yes, this receipt details Mr. Natsume's purchases that day. But you can see, only 3 books are listed.
No.
Therefore, Mr. Natsume would have only been able to drop 3 books at the scene of the crime. Which means that your powers of observation, madam, cannot be relied upon. Grrr. So, it cannot be denied that though you say it was the defendant you saw, you could very well be mistaken.
Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. No!
Objection!
It's plainly evident that it is your powers of deduction that cannot be relied upon, my learned Nipponese friend. What? What cannot be denied is that there are 2 witnesses, that these 2 witnesses saw the accused running from the scene. A fact you know very well you have no hope of disproving. So you've striven to avert attention from that by dint of some inconsequential discrepancies. Would that be fair? Ugh. But your plan has somewhat recoiled against you. What are you talking about? It's quite simple. Let me explain with a toast. To the policeman's wife and her entirely accurate testimony in every respect. Oh. You see, the matter is not up for debate. At the scene on Briar Road, a total of 4 books were definitely found. But what about the photographic print? It only shows 3. Quite right. Only 3 books can be seen in that print. That print? You mean to say... Allow me to present another, one that shows the victim's hand. I don't believe it. It's the 4th, it's burnt. It's the 4th book. As you will observe, the 4th book was hidden from view in the original print by the victim's torso. No. Yeah, but it's burnt, and we happen to know where a fire took place that day. Order, order! You see? Look. Yes.
It's just like I said, isn't it, my darling?
Yes, sir. Patricia's always right, sir. Let us study the receipt for the books purchased by the accused on that day in question. Miss Beat, the titles once again, if you please.
Oh, yes, of course. The picture of something or other.
The picture of Monsieur Lecoq. What's it, yearnings? Canterbury yearnings.
A meal for someone.
A meal for Garbarao. As the court has just heard, the witness remembers the book titles flawlessly, save for a few minor details. Mrs. Beat's powers of recollection can only be described as exceptional.
Did you hear that, Rolly? The gentleman paid me a compliment.
Yes, sir. Flawless, sir. Patricia is flawless. But there's only 3 on the receipt, and Mrs. Beat mentioned 4. There's nothing surprising about that. Clearly, the fourth book is that which is showed in the photographic print. I'm sorry, Counsel, but does that not seem odd? Why should the fourth book be admitted from the receipt? It isn't odd at all, my lord. As the photograph clearly shows, the fourth book was found in the victim's clutches. In other words, it belongs to the victim. The victim was holding her own book. I wonder what became of that fourth book. Obviously, it wasn't overlooked by the investigating officers at Scotland Yard. I have it here as evidence. You will submit that in the aforementioned photographic print, please. My pleasure, my lord. The prosecution rests. Let me open this book real quick. Look at that. Oh, look at this! The book has been badly burnt. You're right. You'd never be able to read it in this state, especially not the latter pages. What a terrible waste. Judging from the scorched edges of the paper, I think the damage must have occurred very recently. A book recently damaged by fire. Excellent. I have nothing further to add. What? You seem surprised, my learned friend. But your resistance until now has been in vain. Entertaining, yes, but futile. The spurious longer route to the accused's lodging that you tried to establish in your summation examination, and the attempted discrediting of the witness's powers of recollection in your cross-examination. Futile? I walked right into this. You see, everything we've said is true. Isn't that right, my darling? Yes, Pat. Marry me, Pat. What? I thought you were married. So perhaps the ladies and gentlemen of the jury would like to reconsider their positions, should the court waste any more time on this Nipponese travesty. Or is the decision you have to make all too apparent already? You have heard all of the witnesses and seen all of the evidence. This trial has run its course. Mr. Naruhodo, I'm afraid we are in a terribly precarious position. If I fight back in the wrong way now, I could very well make things worse. Think, Ryunosuke, what do you do now? I mean, we have to raise an objection, don't we?
Objection!
I'm not done yet. No, my learned friend. It is over. That last cross-examination was your final chance to establish a credible defense, and you failed. The die has been cast. There is no more room for debate. Well, it might be over as far as you're concerned, but... I can't think of what to say. If I may, Lord Van Zykes, it seems somewhat boorish to close down the debate at this point. Your insignificant little Eastern Isle must be lawless hole indeed, for a lowly judicial assistant to have the audacity to intervene at a moment like this. Oh. I am, to my shame, still a very inexperienced lawyer, so you will have to forgive me, but I consider my assistant's advice essential and her opinions invaluable. Mr. Naruhodo? One of this great land's great guiding principles is tolerance, so the court will hear you, madam. Go ahead, Mr. Sato. Very well. Pray, what insight can you give us? What have we all overlooked in this matter that you see fit to pursue further? Well, the court has been presented with new evidence, but only after the last cross-examination finished. I see. And you believe this new evidence warrants further examination? Mr. Naruhodo, what do you think? Is it just possible that this new evidence might be decisive proof we've been waiting for? The judge is sure to ask the members of the jury to announce their leanings. And of course, he's sure to ask you to explain what that crucial piece of evidence is and why. So we must take this exam into... Yes, I've already done this. Thank you, Mrs. Sato. One last chance. I can't let it go to waste. The defense wishes to present evidence, my lord. Very well. The defense may present a piece of evidence.
Take that!
The evidence in question is what we can see from the newly presented photographic print of the crime scene. The fourth book found in the victim's hands.
Objection!
We have already discussed the fourth book at length. Other than it being in the victim's grasp at the time of the incident, no significance has been attached to it. Pursuing the matter further would be a flagrant waste of the court's time, as you know. Yes, I'm afraid, counsel, I must concur. And I'm afraid when I afforded you this opportunity, you led the court to believe that you had evidence that contained a hitherto undisclosed clue. So I must insist that you elaborate. You will identify this clue. Do I make myself clear? Oh, yes, my lord. It's, Mr. Naruhodo. I believe the prosecution is trying to avoid a thorough examination. Which means you may well be on the right track. Yes, I think you might be right. So, counsel, precisely where is this clue? I mean, like, the fact y'all want me to show you this is like... Ah, fuck, I didn't push present, we just clicked on it.
Got it!
I would ask the court to observe the back of the book. The back? What do you... Oh, good gracious. It's been burnt to a crisp. So we have to ask ourselves, why was the victim clutching what was clearly an unreadable book? It is undeniably an extremely unnatural thing for her to have been doing.
Objection!
Unnatural, you say? And what of it, my Nipponese friend? Oh. Were I to concede the point, if it bears no relation to the case, there is nothing to discuss. So, should you wish to assert that the fire damage is some veiled clue as to what happened that day, pray do enlighten us. What truth does this charred book hide? A charred book. There's just one possibility here. It's an outside chance, but worth a try. Alright, I'll explain my theory. Don't keep us waiting any longer. What are you suggesting? Its owner. My lord, the burn on the back of this book reveals a startling truth about the book's owner. I beg your pardon, but we already know who the book belonged to. The victim was gripping it in her hand when she fell. The question of how this book came in this victim's hands has yet to be answered. However, as to the question of who the book belongs to and where it originated, the defense has very credible answers. Good gracious, how can you possibly? Very well, I'll play along with this futile attempt to delay your inevitable demise. But do remember the members of the jury may well burn you if your little gamble goes awry. Counsel, the defense's response here is very likely to influence the final outcome. So tell the court, who is the owner?
Take that!
The answer is that the book belongs to the couple who own the house where the defendant has been lodging. A certain Mr. and Mrs. Gary. The landlords? And whether this is some extraordinary coincidence or some kind of fate at work, I don't know. But, of all the people in London, one of the 6 chosen for jury duty in this courtroom today is none other than Mrs. Gary.
Oh my goodness, me? I think you must be mistaken, sir. I'm not Mr. Gary's wife. I'm his maid.
Things would be much easier if you would stop. Alright then, how about a simple question for you? Have you ever seen this book in Mr. Gary's house?
I would never presume to know all of the books, good sir.
This is outlandish behavior. This woman is the accused landlady, you say? You implicate the hard-working member of... You implicate this hard-working member of the public. You besmirch her without a shred of evidence. Your actions are unforgivable. This is no mere conjecture. The defense happens to know that on the day in question, at almost exactly the same time as the victim was stabbed on the pavement, another incident was taking place in the room on the top floor of Mr. and Mr. Gary's house.
Good lord!
A fire, my lord.
Afraid to say it was. Happened in the blink of an eye, you know. The whole place filled with smoke. Couldn't see a bally thing.
Didn't take long for the fire to spread, of course. The bally furniture started going up as well. Worst of all, I lost my favorite book called The Lion's Pride. He's not happy. The Lion's Pride. By Jove, the very same title that's the subject of this debate. Oh dear me. This is raisable. All you have told the court is that a book by the same name was involved in a fire, in which case it would be reasonable to assume it was burnt to ashes. And entirely unreasonable to infer that it magically removed itself to the scene of the crime. Perhaps it would make more sense if I told you that the cause of the fire was marital discord. Without going into details, it appears Mrs. Gary was considerably enraged. Apparently she continued to attack Mr. Gary even amid the flames. Oh, how awful. I can't imagine being so horrid to the one you love. Can you, Rowley? Absolutely not, sir. My Patricia would never raise a finger against me, sir. Well, had all my favorite novels in that case. But as soon as the fire got a hold of them, that was it. Whoosh, up in smoke. Then the wife started hurling things at me. Oh my god, it went out the window! There I was, back up against the window, under heavy fire, enemy fire. Incendiary books coming 10 to the dozen. The man had his back up against the window, and he had burning books thrown at him. Goodness gracious, are you suggesting that the book was thrown through a window and landed coincidentally at the scene of the crime? That doesn't really help, does it? No, a thorough investigation of the surrounding area was conducted the very evening of the incident. There is no report of the Gary window's pane being broken. Okay, so then... That's quite true. We also saw no sign of broken glass. But it is not conceivable that the window was opened at the time, and not even remotely. Let us not forget the season and the chilling weather that accompanies it. No Londoner would ever leave a window open in the middle of winter. And it doesn't help us if the book went out there. Everything could have just been happening at that time. Does the defense postulate this scenario in all seriousness? Do you earnestly claim the book found the way to the scene was a flaming projectile thrown by Mr. Gary's wife? I believe it's a possibility, my lord. That's quite enough.
Well, I hope that everyone can see you for what you are now, you little foreign trickster. You call yourself a lawyer, but you're just a coward, a mean coward. Really? Claiming that our little tiff set the whole neighborhood alight, honestly. Implying that I'm merely posing as a maid for appearance's sake. How could you? It's nothing to do with this beastly case, not any of it at all. All you've done is sully our family's name.
No, I assure you that I was never...
Dragging an upstanding citizen's name through the mud simply to divert attention from your failing defense. I should box your ears, that's what I should do. It's utterly unforgivable.
Too right.
Here we go.
How long have we sat here now listening to this Nipponese spouting out his fancy foreign theories? But think about it. At the end of the day, the only person who could have stabbed the victim is that little hunchback with the mustache, and he ran from the scene.
I do declare you're right. It's true. Yes, what did I tell you?
Makes sense to me.
Sorry? What's that?
Well, it would appear that the ladies and the gentlemen of the jury are once again in full agreement. What is your position, Von Sykes? In truth, my lord, I feel these have been unnecessarily protracted proceedings. But then one must always exercise patience in order to savor the best vintage. No, wait. The mystery of the fourth book. What the fuck, dude? If books are your predilection, my learned friend, study them on your own time. What, no forgive the discourtesy? Ahem. In that case, ladies and gentlemen, you will state your individual decisions.
Guilty!
Guilty. Guilty.
Here we go again. I'm gonna get hydrated for this one.
Guilty. Guilty.
hydrated and I'm ready to summation examination.
Thank you for that unambiguous response.
That's twice now. It's over. Don't give up. Mrs. Sato, have you forgotten? The battle isn't over. You're not suggesting, of course, another summation examination. You could still convince the jurors to change their mind. My lord, the defense asks to exercise its right to a summation examination. You believe that you still have tricks up your sleeve? I don't intend to trick anybody. I intend to uncover the truth. This is no time to be downcast. As long as there's a chance, I have to stay strong. Oh, we're gonna do it right there? Okay.